Hi guys, welcome back. So we've got our fascinating round of fixtures coming up. The best fixtures you'll see outside of a World Cup, starting with England versus Australia. Let's have a look at these teams. I'll tell you what I think and love to know what you guys think. Now the pack looks the same exactly, there's no massive surprises I suppose, apart from of course Tom Curry at 8, which still is a bit annoying because it's a bit of a waste. I mean, it's great to have him and Underhill on the same pitch, but I don't really understand the balance. Don Brandt's ready to go, get him in there, but anyway, at least we'll see him off the bench. Now, the most interesting things with the forwards is on the bench. Bevan Rodd gets his first cap, hopefully, off the bench. Mako Vunipola maybe would have been called up. There must have been discussion, but they're saying no, let's stick with the youngster, which I think is the right call to go for. And then it's a 6-2 split. Now, I can't complain about this too much because when I've picked England teams in the past, in order to get all the back rows in that I want, I have gone for 6-2 splits. And the big change here is they've gone for Sam Simmonds on the bench as well. Now, that's fascinating because you've got Alex Don Brandt at number 8 and Sam Simmonds at number 8 on the bench. Now, Alex Don Brandt surely is going to play number 8. I mean, he may play emergency second row at some point, but you've got Charlie Ewels there, so he doesn't need to. So it really points to me that Sam Simmonds is going to be a 6 or a 7, probably a 7, and they want him to be more flexible. Absolutely fascinating. It would be great to see him as an emergency centre, but I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, getting into the back line. We've got Ben Youngs at 9 off the back of a good game against Tonga. I will say, on rewatching that Tonga game, that rip he had on the number 8, a little bit fortuitous potentially. The number 8 actually handed him right off and kind of just pushed him into the ball. So a little bit fortuitous, but anyway, good finish, and it was a good game from Young. So I think that's fine for him to start. And we get to see Raffi Quirk, which is, I think, what they wanted to do in the first game. So let's have a look at him. He's an exciting prospect, but you never know till they play in an international. Then it gets interesting. At 10 is Marcus Smith, and on the face of it, fantastic. However, they are playing Owen Farrell as well, and they're playing 10-12, which creates a conundrum. Surely, if you're playing Farrell at 12, you really want Tuolangi at 13, otherwise there's no power. Well, they are playing Tuolangi, but on the wing. Henry Slade comes in at 13. Had a good game last time, but he's not massively physical. Farrell, not the biggest either, so it's not that intimidating. And up against Australia's team, I think they've got some really strong centres. Why is Manu playing 14? Well, maybe it's just because he's so good they don't want to leave him out. That's possible. Maybe it's because of Farrell and Slade in the centres being quite small. They wanted someone to bring in off the wing, and Radwan probably isn't that power guy. Is it they're not quite sure about Radwan against a better team? I don't know. Anyway, let me know what you think. It's a bit strange. I'm looking forward to it. Eddie's saying, well, we don't think they're going to kick to us, so it's okay. Is that a bluff? Do they actually want Australia to kick away the ball more and go away from their strength of running it? I don't know. Could be any of those things, to be honest. And then we've got Freddie Stewart at fullback, which is great. Give him some more experience. Happy with that. And then the 2 on the bench, like I said, Raffi Quirk. Then Max Malins covers quite a lot. Covers fullback, wing. Could cover 10 if needed, but I doubt he'll be needed. Then it really looks like, the spare centre is, of course, Manu Tuolangi, who could slot into centre. So they need him fit so he could go the 80 minutes if that is needed. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of that England team. Now, having a look at Australia, they are in a bit of trouble prop-wise. Tupou is out, which is a massive shame because, as a spectator, you just want to see him play. England won't obviously be too upset by that. Slipper then has to move across from the loose head to the tight head. They've brought in Hoskins as an emergency cover from London Irish. I don't think that would have been a planned move. It's probably because he's here in the country. No disrespect to him. A little bit of a surprise to me is O'Connor staying at 10. Now, I really think he was very poor last week. I made a comment of, get Lolosio on the plane, but someone pointed out he's actually already here. They called him up a while ago when Cooper had left, which I'd missed, so I really would have expected him to have started, but he's on the bench. I think that's a bit of an error. Centres, like I mentioned, really, really strong. Paisami and Ikitau. I like them a lot. New guys, but they're really physical. They take it to the opposition in attack as well. So that's a danger for them. Beals at fullback. Now, loads of experience, but he's not quite the player he used to be on pure speed and agility. So, good to see him play, but I'm not quite sure it's kind of a future-looking selection there. But Australia here can definitely play the underdog. Definitely they're a bit underpowered from their top team anyway, or a lot off their top team. Plus, like Eddie Jones said, they like to play that underdog card, and they can really have the old backs against the wall attitude here away from home at Twickenham. So let me know what you think of their team and how this game is going to go. Next up, we've got Ireland against the All Blacks. A real mouth-watering game here. Absolutely fascinating. Can't wait for it. And unsurprisingly, Ireland are largely unchanged. Just a couple of switches in there because they played so well against Japan. Again, rewatching that game, they were outstanding. Can they perform the same way against New Zealand? Well, that is the question. So the changes there is Henderson in for Byrne. Bit of a 50-50 call. Bit tough on Byrne, but Henderson a more experienced international second row, certainly. Then a little change on the bench, bringing Herring in, who's got more experience at hooker, very reliable. Maybe the rookie Sheehan's a bit of a stretch to put him on the bench for the All Blacks game. And like I said, the rest of the team exactly the same. Conor Murray not getting his starting spot, and a few comments on Joey Carberry as well about maybe he isn't the real deal, and that's something I've said before. After his injuries, he just looks like he's lost a little bit of edge to me. Should they be bringing someone else in? Now, looking at the All Blacks team, loads of changes from Italy, but that was expected because they had rotated pretty much everyone. But because it wasn't a great game for them, really not many have forced their way in anyway. So we've got Moody, Taylor and Naulala, which is their first choice front row, their first choice second rows in Retallick and Whitelock, with Whitelock being the captain. I think that's a really good call. Captain material all over, 130 caps. Sounds good. At 6, Blackadder looks like he's locked down this 6th spot, and I completely agree with it because he's that big, nasty blind side, honest as the day is long, a real grafter. Like this guy a lot. I think they should stick with him. At 7, we've got Papali'i, which is a good call. We've got Ioane on the bench, Akira Ioane on the bench. No Sam Cane, so he hasn't forced his way back in, which I think is right. He shouldn't walk back in, and Papali'i starting I think is the right call because he's been excellent at 7. We've got Ardi Severe at 8, who is outstanding. It's a shame he can't play at 7. I would have been happy for him to be at 7 with Sotutu at 8. But anyway, I still think it's an outstanding pack. Really exciting. Perinara holds on to the 9 shirt. We've got Christie on the bench. Some were saying Christie should start. Beauden Barrett keeps his number 10 slot, which I think is probably right. Mwanga hasn't played all the games for the All Blacks in their period of international games, so that's about right. But what a great combo there. Beauden Barrett as well, 100 caps. Now elsewhere, Sevu Reece is coming on the wing because they managed to shift Rika Ioane into 13 by doing that, and they're trying a new centre combination. Well, another variety of centre combinations with Leonard Brown at 12, Ioane at 13. Is this their best combo? They keep moving it around. It definitely is an area that is not decided yet. Will Jordan on the other wing is starting to look like a world-class operator, so very excited to see him go. And then Geordie Barrett has looked to lock down the 15 shirt. And then the replacements as they are. Havili demoted to the bench, and definitely his place, even on the bench, I think, is under scrutiny. Another massive game is Scotland versus South Africa, the Springboks. 4 changes for Scotland, mixing it up a little bit. Obviously, let's go from the back this time. We've got Hogg, who will be tested a bit more under the high ball in this game, you would think. Maybe gets less of a chance to go for his running game. On one wing, I had said I probably would replace Graham for this game. I would have gone for Stain, but they've actually gone for McLean. Tell me if you think that's the right call, but certainly, 3 good choices there anyway. Van der Merwe was always going to hold on to his spot because he's an absolute handful. In the centre, surprising not to see Johnson again, but he has played a few games, so maybe they're just resting him rather than it being dropped, giving Matt Scott a go. Great to see him back there. So he's at 12, Harris at 13. And on paper, it looks like Scotland have the best halfbacks with Price and Russell compared to the 2 Yankees on South Africa. They do look a lot better, very experienced, so I think that could be an edge for them. A massive day for the front row for Scotland. We've got Schoeman, as I should say, Xander Fagerson at tight head, and then McAnally in between them, preferred to Ashman. Fair enough, they're going for the experience against such a side as South Africa, so that's understandable. But Ashman is there on the bench, so we will see him. Second rows could be a slight area of weakness, especially compared to the second rows that South Africa have, with Etzebeth, Mostert, De Jager on the bench this time, just 3 world-class experienced operators. Some comments saying Skinner was a bit poor last week, missed some tackles, so that's a fair call. They definitely are missing Toulis and Gray, so that's a bit of a shame, bit of a weakness area there maybe. And it looks like maybe they're trying to compensate for a little lack of grunt by, shifting around their back row. They're bringing in Haining in, which looks like for extra carrying and size. But then instead of retaining Watson and leaving Ritchie out, for example, they've moved Ritchie over to 7, who's a little bit bigger, I guess, than Watson, and Fagerson at 8. Which, tactically, I guess makes sense. But, Watson, I think, undeniably is Scotland's best forward. So I don't know about that. That could backfire on them. Then the bench, as we see, very similar. It really looks like when Hastings comes on, they are going to move Russell to 12 again because there's no centre on the bench. Kinghorn covering 10 and the back 3, I guess, could slot into the centres. But I think it will be Russell into 12. And against the size and power of the South African centres, again, could that be genius or an error? So definitely a couple of tactical switch-ups that could go either way. Springboks, very settled at the moment. Willemse was concussed in the last match, which is a real shame, so he's out. Although the way Steyn played, I thought he'd be starting at 15. But Leroux is, one of their main guys, so he comes back in. Steyn, obviously, that bit older as well, potentially. Maybe not one for the future, so they're giving Leroux the start. And then the back line very much as is until we get to 10, where Elton Yantis comes in for Pollard. Is Pollard rotated, as they say, or is he just dropped because he isn't playing that great? Again, I don't have a huge amount of faith in Elton Yantis. Please tell me if that is misplaced. Let's see how those two go as a half-back pairing with Herschel and Elton Yantis, no relation, playing together. Then the pack pretty much is exactly the same, except what they've done is they've just rotated the second rows. Mostert coming in because he's been great. De Jager's done nothing wrong, but just a bit of rotation there to see who goes with Etzebeth. And the bench, like I said, very settled with that huge front row to come on, De Jager to come on, the power of Visa. Very, very scary. And the backs aren't too shabby either, with Reinach, Pollard and Steyn coming on. So their bench looks mighty powerful. Let's see if Scotland can get their game going. They're not going to change particularly for South Africa, although maybe South Africa will force them to change. So let's see, can Scotland play their running attacking game, keep the ball in hand and keep the phases going, or will the Springboks power them out of it with a really accurate kicking, chasing game as well? The scrum fascinating, the line out fascinating. Let me know what you guys think. And finally, on to the Welsh game against Fiji, and they've seen the opportunity just to mix it up a bit, which I think is a good call. It's still a very strong team, so they should win, but they're using the opportunity to try a few things, maybe not so much in the pack, keeping the pack the same, apart from an enforced injury replacement with Wainwright injured. It looks like they're going with 3 open sides, and I've got no problem with this because it's a bit of a stopgap maybe, plus they are all spectacular players in my opinion. So Thomas Young comes into it, he gets the actual 7 shirt, lucky him. I want to see him wider out using his ball handling, pretty much an extra back as well, plus also awesome in the breakdown. Then Ellis Jenkins still at 6 and the captain, which is kind of what I was suggesting in my selections earlier in the week. And then Tane Basham goes to 8, so he's got a big job to do. Although I think I've read that round the other way in certain sections, but that is the team sheet that I pulled off Rugby Pass. But tell me if you think Jenkins is going to play 8. Then into the backs, Hardy gets a role at 9. I think that's just straight rotation. Bigger, of course, didn't play the first game, so not a problem for him to play again. He's not going to be overplayed, hopefully. Then they've mixed up the centres. We can see Josh Adams coming into it. Actually, I'll grab... this is a programme here from the Welsh-South Africa game with Josh Adams on it, interestingly, and they used him a lot off his wing to bash up the centre. That's what I was saying in my match report a lot. And now they're actually putting him in the centre to see how he goes there. Of course, they've had success with putting George North in the centre, but that was a bit more of a permanent switch. I think this is just a bit of a change-up. The centres, I think, are really up for grabs for Wales. Jonathan Davis, it doesn't even make the bench. Is he being rested? Is he close to actually losing his starting spot? I think maybe. And the other big story is, into the back three, we've got Liam Williams at 15, which is fair enough. And then Alex Cuthbert being given a recall on the wing. I didn't really see that coming. Is it really a look to the future? Is it a bit of a stopgap to rotate people? I don't know. On the bench, we've got some youngsters here. We've got Thomas, we've got Wilgriff John, we've got Christ Sheena, of course, who's going to be a future star, I'm pretty sure. Nick Tompkins drops to the bench. Callum Sheedy comes back into it there. So really interesting to see how they go. Definitely some worthwhile experiments here. Let me know which ones you think are good calls and could be permanent. I think Wales should be fairly comfortable winners in this game, but let's see. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of all those teams there, what you would change and how you think those games are going to go. And I'll catch you after the games at the weekend, so I'll see you then.